I'm an artist working with my Chuvash heritage, Ayşe Demina told the Moscow Times when asked what must be kept in mind when connecting with her artwork. The Chuvash people have been colonized many times, and yet, they continue to engage with their disappearing historical traditions, she said. Chuvash are a Turkic ethnic group of slightly more than 1.1 million people, the majority of whom live in the Republic of Chuvashia in Russia's Volga region. Though most modern Chuvash are Orthodox Christians, some also follow the group's historic polytheistic faith. The native Chuvash language is the only surviving member of the Bulgaric branch of Turkic languages. Having lost over 1 million speakers between 2010-2021, according to official census data, it is one of the hundreds of indigenous languages of Russia under threat of extinction. Born in Moscow, Demina, 25, forged a strong connection with her heritage over the years, taking to studying the language and history of her people, both of which fell victim to Russian colonization. In her art, Demina turned to Chuvash handweaving traditions, becoming one of a new generation of indigenous artists from Russia who challenge the Moscow-imposed, Musumified canons of indigenous art. The Moscow Times spoke with Demina ahead of the second edition of Artists Against the Kremlin, an exhibition by MT and All Rights Reversed Gallery at De Bali in Amsterdam, where her work will be on display from August 15 Sept. 4. The Moscow Times. What is the inspiration behind the works that will be shown as part of the Artists Against the Kremlin exhibition? Add. I have prepared a special series of works for this exhibition, 3 large tapestries, which reference an old Chuvash myth about 3 sons. The Chuvash legend states that there was a time when there was not 1, but 3 suns in the sky. People once summoned an archer to shoot down 2 of them, and he did. Since then, we have been living in a broken fairy tale. In Chuvashia, the 3 sons are depicted everywhere, on the coat of arms, on traditional clothing, in memory of the mistake people once made. To me, this legend is about accepting responsibility for human intrusion. The 3 tapestries exhibited at Artists Against the Kremlin each show a different arrow. One pierces a word, another, a sun, and yet another, a heart. This sequence is about taking responsibility for using weapons, and it is also a reminder that sometimes these precise arrows should be turned inward into our consciousness to clear it of unnecessary meanings and obsolete paradigms. The tapestries themselves are soft, made of handwoven fabrics, some of which I collected in exile, some brought from Russia and some were gifted to me. There are even threads that once belonged to my grandmother. The material softens the militaristic images. MT. How does the medium of your work relate to the Chuvash culture and decolonial optics that you employ in your artworks? The tradition of weaving has been preserved in my family for centuries. I learned how to weave from my mother. I also learned different techniques of pattern making while traveling around Russia on volunteer missions. In Soviet times, the value of hand weaving was deeply diminished. Craftsmanship in general was seen as inferior, outdated and even counter-ideological to industrial mass production. That's why it's so important for me to keep weaving by hand, even though it takes an enormous amount of time and energy. I intentionally preserve a kind of roughness in my work, to make it visible that it was made by hand.